Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Necrons. So we've got a bit of a maths comparison video for you today, and we're going to be mainly talking about the Lychguard. Now of course the Lychguard have two different profile options that you can take. You either take from the Hyperphase Swords and the Dispersion Shields, or the Warscythes. So we're going to get onto how they do in terms of the stats and the maths, and kind of work out which one is the better option. So guys, yeah, make sure you are making a subscription before we carry on. I'm waiting for you. Right. Let's go. You have subscribed, haven't you? Cool. Let's get on to this video. So we've got the Warscythes and we've got the Sword and Shields. Let's talk about those weapons first. Let's get the basics out of the way. The Hyperphase Swords have 3 attacks, whereas the Warscythes have only got 2 attacks. So you're getting 1 extra attack with the swords instantly. That makes a big difference. Both weapons skill 3+. The swords are strength 6. The Warscythes are strength 8. Minus 2 AP on the swords, minus 3 AP on the Warscythes, and only 1 damage on the swords. 2 damage on the Warscythes, and the Warscythes have Devastating Wounds on top. So clearly the Devastating Wounds weapon with the Warscythe is a better option. However, you're getting 1 less attack with it, and of course you do get an extra bonus by taking the weaker weapon, which is the Dispersion Shield with the 4+ invulnerable save, which is a huge deal, especially for Necron players, because we like our resiliency. So that's all the basics out of the way. Let's now get into it. So we actually did a previous video with the Immortals where we compared the Gauss Blasters with the Tesla Carbines. We're going to use the exact same examples, and we're going to start off against Necrons. So because we kind of already know Necrons, we kind of know where we stand. So we're going to be fighting against Scarabs, against Warriors, Immortals, Wraiths, and a Monolith, and we're going to do the stats. Then towards the middle and the end of the video, we're going to change it up to some different faction units, and then kind of do the same thing there. So let's begin with we're going against Scarabs. What are Scarabs first? The Cryptek Scarabs are toughness 2 with a 6+ armor save, 4 wounds apiece. Now the AP is on both of these weapons, so it's going to go straight through armor against Scarabs, isn't it? Long story short, if you're using the Swords and Shields, you're going to kill nearly 4 Scarabs, 3.8 as an average. Of course, you can't roll a 3.8, but we're going by averages here. 3.8 Cryptek Scarabs will go down with a unit of 10, and make that very clear, 10 Lychguard with the Sword and Shields. Now, if you're using the Warscythes, it will be 5.3, so it has increased to 5.3 because the damage 2 and the Dev Wounds. I mean, the Dev Wounds actually has no relevancy whatsoever because it goes through armor anyway. There is no invuln save, but you're getting 2 damage a pop, even though you've got 10 less attacks. If you're moving it into the Warriors, well, it's actually tied. It's 11.1 each. Doesn't matter if you've got 10 extra attacks or damage 2, damage whatever, because they're only 1 wound models. It's just easier to wound Necron Warriors because they're toughness 4 going up against strength 8 with the Warscythes, so you're wounding on 2s. Whereas with the swords, you're wounding on 3s, but you've got more attacks. So that's why it's actually balanced itself out. Both weapons here are clearing 11 warriors. Moving into Immortals, which are now toughness 5. This is where the Swords and Shield option slightly gets ahead at 8.9 versus 8. Purely because of sheer amount of attacks here. And toughness 5, you're wounded on 3s. And they're also going to have a save this time, because Warriors... You're probably thinking, why isn't it 11.1 like Warriors? They're still 1 wound models. Well, Warriors are a 4+ armor, and of course, if you've got a minus 2 AP weapon, that's going to go to a 6+ armor save. Whereas with Immortal, that's going to go to a 5+ armor save because they start on a 3+ armor. So they've got a better armor save, more chance of surviving. But with the Warscythes, they're also getting a save. It's now a 6+ because that Warscythe is minus 3 AP, so there's a save there too. And the toughness 5 now, so they're not wounded on 2s. So that's why that has now flipped. Cryptek Wraiths are toughness 6 with a 4+ invulnerable save, so the AP now doesn't really have any effect. And they're 3 wound models. And this is where both units kind of struggle. 1.3 dead Wraiths with the Swords and Shields, and 2 with the Lychguard. I mean, the Cryptek Wraiths aren't an ideal target for Warscythes that are damage 2. Because 3 wound models aren't an ideal target, really. You want to be going for Space Marines or Terminators that are now 4 wounds with the shields. They're the kind of optimum target, not 3 wound models.
Then we finally come on to the Necron Monolith, which you shouldn't really be targeting with these kind of weapons because you're going to be wounded on stupid amount. What would you be wounded on? You would, if you've got Strength 6, you're going to need 6s to wound, and Strength 8, you're going to need 5s to wound. But yeah, you get 1.7 wounds with the Swords and Shields, and you're actually getting 6.5 with the Warscythes. And the reason for that is actually because of the Devastating Wounds. That's the part that makes everything different here. Whereas in all the previous ones, the Devastating Wounds didn't really come into effect because you were pretty much removing their save or giving them a low armor save anyway. But yeah, 6.5 with the Warscythes. So now there are some variables to consider when we're talking about all these stats. I mean, first of all, command protocols. If you've got a single character or just one character in a unit, they're going to get a +1 to the hit roll, which of course makes a huge difference. You've then got things such as the Protocol of Hungry Void, which is a +1 to the strength and an extra bit of AP on top of that. Or you've got Nemesis Andrek, who can give you the random ability each battle round. He can give you sustained hits 1, which will benefit both the weapons. You've got the lethal hits, which would again benefit both weapons, or the Devastating Wounds option. Well, it's not an option, it's a random roll, but Warscythes already have Devastating Wounds, so they won't benefit, but the Swords and Shields would. So he could be giving out some buffs and bonuses. Now, I didn't really know where to put this in the video, so I thought I'd put this here. This seems like an appropriate place to put it, but of course, in terms of defense, which is not really what this video is about, but it kind of matters which character you take with the unit when you're considering the weapons. So if you are taking the Sword and Shield option, then you've already got the in-1 save. So there's absolutely zero need to take Orokin the Diviner, who provides the in-1 save. Whereas if you've got the Warscythes, they've not got the in-1 save, so therefore you can put Orokin the Diviner to gain that in-1 save and still have the Strength 8 with 2 damage. Now alternatively, you've got the Technomancer, which I personally think is a better option because he gives you an additional save. You've got the standard armor save and then the 5+ Feel No Pain save, and he's also healing an extra D3, which will just be 1 wound, I suppose, if you've got 1 on 1 wound. But I think I prefer the Feel No Pain because you're kind of getting 2 saves, whereas with the in-1 save, it is just overwriting your armor save. So I prefer the Technomancer, but it does matter, and it all depends on what weapon you've actually selected. Now let's go back to those stats, and we're going to buff those stats further because we mentioned when we're talking about the variables, Command Protocol's ability, which is obviously our index launch detachment from the Awakening Dynasty, a +1 to the hit roll with a unit that has a character in it. So what does that do to our statistics if we've got a +1 to our hit roll? So here we've got it on the table here. 3.8 goes to 4.8 with the Scarabs, 11.1 goes to 13.9 with the Warriors, 8.9 to 11.1 with the Mortals. The Wraiths, it doesn't go up that massively, 1.3 to 1.8, and the Monolith, barely any movement at all, 1.7 to 2.1. That's when you've got a +1 to hit with the Hyperphase Swords. When you do that exact same thing with Command Protocols with the Warscythes, this is how this changes. Scarabs, you're doing an extra base and a half, almost an extra base and a half there, 6.7 is now dead. Warriors, 13.9, Immortals goes up to 11, Wraiths goes up to 3, and the Monolith goes up to 8, which is quite a big deal. And that's more, again, to do with Devastating Wounds because you're getting more attacks through to then roll for wounds. That's the reason for that. Now, if you put these side by side, just to see what this looks like in a comparison when you've got a +1 to the hit roll, against Scarabs, the Scythes are the better option. 6.7 versus 4.8 is the top line. I mean, you don't get Scarabs in more than 6 anyway, so it's probably not really needed, but as an example, the Scythes are doing better there. The Warriors just split there, 13.9, which is a good showing, really. You're not going to remove a 20-man brick. They're going to have to, just like we know already with the defense mechanisms, you use Undying Legions, you use the Ghost Arc. They'll be back. They'll be back. Immortals, very similar. I've put them both as a yellow block here. They're both pretty much 11. I know one says 11.1, but they're virtually the same. Cryptek Wraiths, it goes from 1.8 versus, well, 1.8 is with the Sword and Shields versus 3 with the Scythes. That will probably be because of Devastating Wounds again. And the Monolith goes, well, 2.1 with the Swords and 8 with the Scythes. So there is quite a big difference now all of a sudden when you've got a +1 to the hit roll.
But that's against Necron units. What about if we take it against other units within the game? Again, I'm going to stick to the same examples. I'm going to use some Space Marine units. I'm going to use some Tyranid units because they're both the current new codexes, or the Marine Codex is out, I think. Is it this week, next week? I can't remember. I lose track of all this stuff. But these are the stats now. And this is including the +1 to hit with command protocols as well. So against Termagants, which are toughness 3 with a 5+ armor save, 1 wound models, when you've got a +1 to hit roll, the sword and shields are going to be eliminating 20.8 of the Termagants, whereas the Scythes only 13.9. That's because of the lack of attacks. They've only got 20 attacks, and bear in mind they've got to all be in, which is something we should have said in the variable section really. They've all got to be in the fight. If not all in the fight, then these stats are obviously going to be different. Against Intercessors, the swords and shields, you're going to kill 5.3, which is still good. But the Scythes are literally cleaving through Space Marines because of the damage too. 13.9 dead, you're removing units, simple as that. If they charge something, they're gone. Terminators with their toughness 5, their new toughness, and they've got a 2+ arm with a 4+ invuln and 4 wounds with the shields. 2.4 die with the sword and shields, or 3 die with the Scythes. That's not too far apart, to be honest with you. I thought that would be a bit more. Devastating wounds does help, but they've just got 10 less attacks, haven't they? Tyrant Guard, which are toughness 8, 3+ armor save, there's no invuln, and they've got, I think they've got 4 wounds apiece, if I'm not mistaken. You're killing one of them with the swords, 2.6 with the Scythes, that's quite a lot, you know, 2.6. That's a big amount. And the Exocrine, which is their big bad shooty monsters, 5.6 damage with the sword and shield, and 8 damage with the Scythes. So when you look at this again, the Scythes are definitely winning again against most things. When you're talking about infantry that are 1 wound, that's where the swords and shields win, because if we go back to the Necron warriors and immortals, they were doing enough. They were doing just as much as the Scythes were. Against Termagants, they're also ahead, by they're on 20.8. It's when you start to bring in more than multi-wound models, Intercessors, Terminators, Tyrant Guard, Exocrine, that's when the swords and shields slightly struggle with their damage output. And the problem with it is damage 2 versus damage 1, it actually is a big deal, because we've only got 10 more attacks with the swords and shields, but that also means you need to get 10 more through just to kind of level up with the damage, if that makes any sense. Which we're not going to do that. So that's where damage 2 becomes, it just kind of gets away from damage 1. But where they suffer in punch, of course they make up in durability. They've now got a natural invulnerable save of a 4+, which is huge. It means you don't have to pay for Oracle and the Diviner. You can then go and get a Technomancer with a 5+ feel no pain save, which gives them even more resiliency. And then you go and add your Cryptothralls and your Canoptic Reanimator, your Overlord with the Resurrection Orb. Then they start to become almost impossible to get rid of. Whereas with the Warscythes, they are much more punchy, much more choppy, but they're less resilient unless you pay for Orokin, but then you've not got a Feel No Pain save, so they're still less resilient than the Sword and Shield option, and you've had to pay for Orokin, which is 80 points. Now my personal playstyle would be to take the Sword and Shields at present. I think when the edition started I was on the side of the defense of the Warscythes, because I thought, oh, Orokin's actually good all of a sudden, I'm going to start using him. But really, I think it's the Technomancer that's more my kind of style, to be durable. And I also prefer to have 2 rolls at having a save. I've got my invulnerable save from the sword, from the shield, and then I've got a Feel No Pain save of a 5+ from the Technomancer's ability. So I've got 2 cracks at the whip there. Whereas if I've got the Warscythe, it's just my regular armor save, and that's if there's no AP, of course. And if I've got Orokin, okay, I get the 4+ invulnerable save, but that's it. There's no extras, there's nothing else. So you kind of rely on them to stay up, and that actually will add to their damage output, because the less models you've got, the less work you're doing in return. So it kind of has to be a balancing act, and I think you need models on the table, not just for scoring, but to do the damage as well. But yeah, guys, that's my sort of summing up of the Lychguard. Sorry, I've been a bit nasally. I should have said in the intro, actually. I've just got rid of COVID, or I'm still getting rid of COVID yet again. But yeah, that's the Lychguard. If you're liking these kind of mathematical videos or these comparison videos, let me know by commenting it down below. But yeah, thank you all for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.